Okay, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pashtatar Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Also, you might see my eyes going to the I guess your right or left because I'm looking at my phone, expecting messages to come. Okay, for my guest. All right. Um, Now I'm trying to. There's. I think I mentioned last time. There's one thing, one saying which I keep saying. I'm trying to stop saying. I've said it so many times. Now let me share my screen. So now let me. How can I say it? Let me say something different. Now let me bring up the slides so that you can see. Okay. Now I'm also I'm doing some research as well because in one sense, as soon as I share the screen, um, what do you see? Do you just see the slide or you see the whole screen
Pure
with,
devotional service. Just
This
the
one.
slide.
and you can't see anything else?
You at the top.
Okay, great, great. Okay, you just see what's in the green box. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that I because when as soon as I share this, then I go into a little box on the right hand side, as you probably noticed. So sometimes it loses connection with those who are listening or taking part. So I'm trying to figure out there's one nice type of way you can do it where it's more better to it's just better communication. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyway, we'll go with what we've got for now. Okay, so welcome everyone. Again, those who just joined. This is session number 13. Okay. And today we're going to continue discussing this verse here, Rupa Goswami's definition of pure devotional service. And we looked at last week the secondary characteristics which come in the primary characteristics, excuse me, which come in the second two lines of this verse. Yeah, that's the primary characteristic. So today we're going to going to try and cover the secondary characteristics. Okay. And I think we mentioned this last week. I think we just pulled up the first slide last week as a bit of an introduction. Because the reason why there is secondary characteristics and they are important is because just the primary characteristics in of themselves do not fully define what Rupa Goswami describes as Uttam Bhakti. And say, for example, someone may be very favorably inclined or may not see Krishna as an enemy like the wrestlers Mustika or Kamsa. Remember that discussion last week? But they may be serving Krishna in that sense favorably, but they may be inspired primarily by material desires. You understand? So therefore, Rupa Goswami gives a further definition in this verse from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So we'll be looking at that today, these secondary characteristics. So they complement the primary ones. So these will complement the primary ones or the most important ones. So, okay. Again, any questions? We're always happy to field questions or comments that you would like to make. It's always valuable to hear from devotees as well. So please feel free to add anything. Okay, so basically this is a show. We're probably familiar with this first line by now, Anyabilasta Sunyam, and then Gana Kamada Anavritam. So we'll be looking at this today. It's always free of ulterior motives. Yeah. You could say motives for the self. Yeah. ulterior motives, motives for self-satisfaction in rendering devotional service to the Lord. So we're going to look at that. And also being free from speculative and fruitive pursuits, jnana, kamadi, anavritam. So that sometimes that's unclear what exactly that means. Sometimes we have a vague idea of it. Sometimes there's some misunderstandings about that. So we'll look at that. Hopefully we'll get there today. Let's see how it goes. Excuse me, I'm looking at my phone to see if my friend is trying to get in. Okay, so first we're going to look at the first one, um, how pure devotion is free of ulterior motives. Now, one thing is for sure that we cannot be without desire. Yeah? It's inherent in the jiva. Sometimes people mm, try to imagine they have no desire, but actually it's not possible for the jiva. Or they so we cannot be free of desire. I think we know what we're getting at here, that we cannot be free of desire, but we should upgrade the quality of our desire. Yeah, we have to everyone's familiar with the word upgrade. Yeah. So we want to upgrade our consciousness. Yeah. So change the quality of desire. Now that happens progressively in our development of Krishna consciousness. Just by practicing devotional services, we desire to do nice things to Krishna and to serve Krishna. So that's the principle. So that's good. Yeah. So we're changing the quality of our desire. So basically, what that means also, we should be, what that means that we should be free of all other desires except this. And this is what we want to cultivate. So the desire to please Krishna, to please his devotees, his bona fide representatives, or the Vaishnavas. So this is what it means by Anyabhilasata Sunyam. Now, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami, they give an interesting analytic of this word Anyabhilasata. So some of you might have heard this discussion before. So Anyabhilasa means free of desire, but the word, now if you know Sanskrit, this might make sense. I mean, I don't know Sanskrit so well, but Rupa Goswami specifically put ta at the end. It doesn't seem like much, just ta. Okay, tato actually, but in the vocative, it's ta. Okay, so that makes it anyabhilasita sunyam. So it's small but very significant because it changes the meaning from simply desire to the general tendency to desire. Now, what am I speaking about there? So that takes some explanation. So what are we getting at here? Yeah. So that means this adjustment, it accommodates other desires within the scope of Krishna consciousness, the desires for the basic necessities of life. Yeah. The basic necessities, the bare necessities of life, yeah. Eating, sleeping, and basic self-preservation. Yeah. Because again, Rupa Goswami is making it very clear here. Someone could misunderstand this principle of pure devotion and artificially try not, try not to eat or not to sleep because it's for me. I'm being selfish. Of course, Prabhupada says we should reduce our sleep. Prabhupada was quite enthusiastic about devotees not sleeping much, actually. He didn't, he was quite enthusiastic about that. Yeah. So, but it but the desire to eat, the desire to sleep, or for self-preservation, because of this addition, anyabala sata, it's not outside the scope of pure devotion. Say for instance, so then they give an example. Say a devotee is placed in a dangerous situation. and you got no other recourse but to call out to Krishna. Krishna, save me. Yeah. Bit like the residents of Vrindavan in one sense, just remembering the little Krishna videos when Indra's throwing down the reins. Krishna! But they're praying for Krishna. Anyway, it's another subject. So a devotee may be in a difficult situation. So it's not explicitly a desire to please Krishna, but it's integral to their life. It's kind of, you could say, the survival instinct. So they don't, so they, these desires, they indirectly relate to serving Krishna because with this body, we can serve Krishna. So they does not disqualify a person from pure devotional service. You see how Rupa Goswami really analyzes this, you know? So, for example, we've got a few devotees coming in. Um, so, what that means is, from our practical perspective, it means that you may desire a job. You're desiring a specific type of job to get a specific type of income to maintain your situation. You may have a wife, you may have a husband, you may have kids, you know, you've got bills to pay, etc. And you got a strong desire to make ends meet. So sometimes devotees condemn themselves for having such desires. Oh, I'm not a pure devotee. I've got to look for this house, I've got to look for this situation. No, because it's integral to maintaining our life, which is dedicated to Krishna. So therefore, it's not outside the realm of pure devotional service. That's what this Anyabhilasita sunyam means. So you can see how it's very specific. So it's okay to desire to go to Sainsbury's and go shopping. Okay? It's not, it doesn't mean you're not a pure devotee if you're going to buy a house. Oh, I'm not practicing pure devotion. Yeah. Also, kamasya nendriya piti lobo jivata yabata jivasya tattva jignasa nato yashche che kamibir. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should only desire a healthy life or self-preservation. So we have to preserve the self. And sometimes we have extensions of the self, family, etc. Yeah, one should only desire healthy life or self-preservation, since the human being is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of his works. So it's not the goal of our life to have a house, but it's part of our life, and it may be needed. Yeah, is that clear? Any questions or comments? Please feel free to ask. There's sometimes devotees have. I mean, plenty of people who think that unless you live in a temple, if you if you live outside the temple, then you can't be a pure devotee. So only those who live in a temple can be pure devotees. I'm kind of exaggerating, but some people do have that misconception. Yeah. So you can see how Rupa Goswami is brilliantly how he wrote this verse, which is so exacting to help us have a really clear understanding. Yeah. Okay.
What we could do, just a
Yeah.
quick thing, like, yeah, we can desire for a house, we can desire for things like, but we have to put Krishna in it.
Yeah, you
Like
have to put Krishna in it.
Ram Krishna. Okay, if I'll have a house somewhere here, this room will be for Krishna's room, or I'll put the altar here, and
Yeah,
like,
that's it. That's a good practical example.
yeah,
You're
and
thinking how to dovetail.
dovetail
You
it.
can help to
Yeah.
dovetail that. Now, we'll speak a little bit more about where devotees may take advantage of this and desire more than what they actually need. I think that comes up next. Let me just get there. But thank you for that very important, very practical point in this. Yeah. How Prabhupada says we should mold our life in such a way that we can always think of Krishna. So remember in a couple of weeks ago, we mentioned that this verse, Anyabhilasada Sunyam, is like a mission statement for our society. and for our practice of Krishna consciousness. So we should mold our life in such a way that we're living up to these definitions of pure devotional service. Yeah. So, so in other words, we're saying the desire for the basic necessities of life to maintain the body and soul. So it's permissible, okay, in pure devotional service. Yeah. Because the body is an instrument. We shouldn't neglect it, by which we can perform devotional service for Krishna's pleasure. Now, the point we're making here is that, but we should know it doesn't mean desires. We should look out, however, that it's not in excess, desire excess or luxury, which is what everyone in the material world is trying to do. Excess or luxury. So that doesn't exactly apply to definition of pure devotional service. I will explain a bit more. Now, this, for instance, we had this verse from Ishopanishad, which helps us to understand. Just looking at my phone to see if my friend's trying to get in. No, okay, 1 second. Sorry about this distraction. Um, for those who just joined, the reason I'm saying things like this because one of my friends staying with me in my ashram, and I have to go down the stairs and let him in, and I'm on the 3rd floor, so we might have to have a little break here. Okay, so anyway, let's just read this first. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore only accept those things necessary. This is the highlighted point. Only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside for his quota, and should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Okay, so we should be careful that we're not desiring excess. Yeah. Now, but this is an interesting point as well, because every one of us is unique and we all have different services. We're all in slightly different stations in that. Excuse me. Here comes my friend. I'm going to have to let's take a break for 5 minutes and I'll be back with you. Yeah. I'll be back. We're having a little.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, I'm back. That was quick.
That was quick.
Yeah, that's because he just phoned up and said he's on the way. He wasn't actually outside. He's in an Uber heading this way. So that's what happened there. Okay. So where was we? Yeah. So we're very individual and we have individual needs. So each devotee has a different service. They're in a different situation. So what may be excess for one may not be excess for another. You understand? So we have to, for instance, I'm a brahmachari, I'm single, and if I start desiring a 5 bedroom house in Richmond overlooking the Thames, would that be excess? Yes, you know, that would be excess. It's an obvious example, I guess, you know. So what may be excess to one person may not be excess for another. So that should be taken into consideration as well. We shouldn't have a critical or in that sense have a critical eye. Some devotees may be in a situation where they have quite an affluent life, yeah, according to their position in society, etc. And they may live in a place which is more, which may be more, I don't know what you want to call it, more lux, kind of better than where we're living. So you understand what I'm saying here? Yeah. So in the name of we want to be careful that we're not imagining that we need more than what we actually need. Yeah. No. Okay. Now we'll expand on this a bit more as well. This point a bit later as well. Any questions, please feel free to ask. So it's good, isn't it? This discussion is really wonderful. We're getting a really clear picture of what pure devotional service is and how to practice it. Of course, ultimately, to practice pure devotional service, we need a pure heart. But to get a pure heart, we have to practice pure devotional service, okay? Then the heart will become purified and more aligned. So sometimes I've been asked, well, when we speak about being free of desire, I've been asked more than one time. So that's mean we shouldn't desire to advance in devotional service? Yeah. Like Mother Yasoda, she is not desiring to advance in devotional service, nor the residents of Vrindavan. So that means okay, I should not. Because isn't that thinking of well, okay, phone's ringing, no friend here, I have to stop. I'm very sorry, but this is turning into a drama. That was Tripad telling me that the Shungavata is on his way. Was so that was another false alarm. Okay, let me get back again. Life is complicated sometimes, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so where was we? Yeah. What was we speaking about? Oh yeah, here. Yeah. So anyone heard that question or thought of this before? We should, should we give up the desire to advance in devotional service? Yeah.
No.
No, yeah. Chandravali is saying it with confidence. Anybody else?
Yeah, we shouldn't. I also agree with this.
Yeah, so we have two prominent devotees saying we shouldn't. Yeah, I guess
No, we shouldn't. No.
we should. Okay, we have unanimous vote here, more or less. Yeah. So the answer, Maharaj, Shivaram Maharaj, he mentions the answer is an emphatic no. Yeah, because the desire to practice and perfect pure devotion is inspired in the heart by pure devotion itself. So we need to cultivate this one. This is one thing we need to cultivate, and we shouldn't reject it. Yeah. Again, you could say it's influenced by impersonalism, because that's the idea of the impersonalist. Don't desire anything, even for yourself. Don't just be completely free of desire. But no, we have the desire to advance in our spiritual practice. It may be obvious to some of us or some of you, but sometimes it's not clear. Yeah. These points are good as well because we're all practicing devotees. Some be practicing longer than others, but you're going to meet persons who are coming to devotional service as well. And if we understand these principles, we can help them to direct them to what it means, yeah, to practice devotional service. Alexander, Prabhu?
I wanted to add that Prabhupada often said through the Bhagavatam that a devotee has no desire, and he explains that having no desire means no material desire.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
This is
So-
the obvious, this is the point. It was very clear. It means no material desire. Doesn't mean being without desire. So as Prabhupada says here, a quote from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya explains that in pure devotional service, there can be no desire other than the desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. Okay? But again, keep in mind what we explained about anyabhilasita. So desiring self-preservation for your situation doesn't dilute pure devotional service, it still means you can practice pure devotional service. Okay? You are a pure devotee. If I can't say, if you're shopping in Sainsbury's, you can still be a pure devotee. Okay? If you're queuing up in Barclays Bank, doesn't mean you're not a pure devotee. Or you don't have pure intent. Okay? And this is another question as well that's sometimes asked. Well, this is very interesting here. Do unwanted desires that linger disqualify devotees from practicing pure devotion? Okay, anyone can say what? Yes or no?
No.
No.
No. Can you explain a bit more, Chandravali?
The unwanted desires may be lingering around, but by practicing, by chanting, by performing devotional service, they'll go in due course of time.
Yeah, very good. Very nice and very nice and succinctly put. They linger around, still lingering around. Yes, Alexander Prabhu.
Yeah, I agree with Mataji.
Yeah, still lingering there. Anyone has that
And
experience?
Yeah.
on
Yes.
top of it, Krishna doesn't always fulfill your desires. He's going to give you what you need for your devotional service.
Yeah, that's Krishna's loving hand and care practically manifest in our life. Yeah. Yes. So
There's a quote in Bhagavad Gita where it says, when a devotee accidentally fall, doesn't disqualify him from devotion.
yeah.
That kind of can be linked to this
What's that
question.
verse? Someone could say that verse.
I forgot the verse,
Apichet
but
Siddharacharo Bhajate Mama Nandibhak Sadomanta Samandi Vyasam Vyasato Hisa. Yeah. Ramana Sukhaji. How do
Yes, Prabhu, Hare
yeah.
Krishna.
How do you
Um, yeah, I'm very happy to hear you talk about that for different devotees, their needs are going to be different according to different
yeah.
circumstances.
Yes, yes.
But my question is, sometimes devotees want to artificially live austerely, and it's not actually conducive. And they feel that there's always this pressure to live simply. And we get that from Prabhupada, simple living, high thinking, idealism. And sometimes devotees will live in a state of poverty when it's actually not conducive for, especially for raising a family.
Yeah.
So simple living can be misinterpreted as poverty living.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think we can include that. I should include that point in the future in this part, in this presentation here. You can go the other way. Yeah. Go the other,
Yeah,
you know.
you can go the
And
other way.
sometimes it can cause some quite distraction in your in a devotee's grihasta ashram. Anyway, now my friend is here now. He's ringing on the buzzer, so I will have to
Huh.
pause. Nrsimhavacha is here, so we'll just pause and you can have a break.
Hare Krishna devotees, I'm back. And, hopefully you can hear me. I've changed to headphones. My guest has arrived. He's here. Krishna Kavacha Guru Ki Jai. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, it's not. My headphones is not working. Okay, let's without wasting any more time. Let's get back where we was. Yeah. Thank you, Ramana Sukha. Very important point. Do you want to add anything on that? Anything else, Ramana Sukha? You're making a very
Well, it's hello. Yeah, it's just that we have to be practical sometimes, and to make sure that a family unit is functioning so that everyone's happy in Krishna consciousness. It's going to mean different things for different individuals, and devotees have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, very, very important.
I mean,
point.
not to live in luxury. That's one extreme, but also to live in poverty is another extreme. And sometimes that misinterpretation, simple living, means poverty living.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody? Anyone else? Any comments upon that? That's
Also,
voice
in
of
the
wisdom speaking.
in
Yeah.
the family, there's in a family of devotees. Even then, everybody's at a different level. Even husband, wife can be different levels.
All right, that's where that's where it might get
So then,
complicated.
it's your internal purification what you have to work on, not the
Okay,
life circumstances.
that's another aspect. Very important point you're bringing out there. Yeah, very important point. Yes. Thank you. So again, back to this here. We'll explain this a bit more. Do unwanted desires that linger disqualify one from practicing pure devotion? Seems like we're agreeing that it necessarily not. It doesn't. Now, in the beginning stages of our Krishna consciousness, there may be many unwanted things still. May we have been inspired by the association of devotees who've taken up the practice of bhakti to one degree or another. But who's it said we still have some lingering things, some unwanted things that linger in the heart. These are called anartas. Anyone heard of anartas? Yes. Yeah. Now, so how to gain, Maharaj speaks here, he said, how to gain access to pure devotion while these things are still in the heart. So we have to insulate. I mean, that's why we're encouraged to follow the regulative principles. We're not encouraged, we're required to ultimately at some point to follow. Yeah. So in other words, we should insulate the desires to serve Krishna from the influence of our past conditioning. So that's called spiritual life. I mean, you take up the principles of spiritual life, but it means that as Mother, I think, but internally, there's going to be a bit of friction because we may, from the past, still these material desires may be there lingering around. So this is the work we have to do to keep on the path of pure devotional service. Yeah, we should insulate these desires, and so they don't. So we're not influenced by our past ungodly life. Yeah, this is our only. Maharaj says this is our only recourse. And as Mother Chandravati said, that in due course of time, through the association of devotees and chanting the holy name, then those anartas will have less effect to the point where they will be kind of cancelled out or flooded out by the rise of desires to please Krishna, his devotees, and the spiritual master. But so just read this part here. So as long as the influence of anartas does not cover the devotee's desire to please Krishna. So in that sense, material desires do not disqualify us from performing pure devotional service. Now, as some of you may have heard this example of the mango. There's the unripe mango, then there's the ripe mango. So that's another discussion. Okay, there are devotees at practicing different levels where they are purified, and the only desires that is within their subtle body and within their mind and the heart is to please Krishna. So they're more sweet mangoes, yeah. But even if I'm not at that stage, we still have access to pure devotional service. You can understand. Again, we've discussed it quite a bit before, but some people have no idea of this principle of pure devotional service, and the only reason they pray to Krishna is to fulfill their material desires. And for them, that's what going to the temple, going to the church, going to the mosque, that is all what it is about. Yeah. But pure devotional service, at least you're aware of the principle of pure devotional service, and you're insulating your material desires, and you're practicing the principles of Shravanam and Kirtanam. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, yes, you have your hand raised there.
Yes, I have. There are two verses in Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, and they go as follows. This discussion has been reminding me of these two verses.
Please, yeah.
Text 30, quote, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. Text 31, he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So if I may, a very quick comment. I think that in accordance with text 30, the key factor is determination.
Yeah, just he's correctly situated in his determination. So thank you for sharing those verses. It's Apishet Sudaracharo. So we're quickly, so from this discussion, what we're hearing here now, they're still determined on the path of pure devotional service, even though there may be a mishap. And there's a very nice prayer which in this regard to a devotee's mentality who may succumb to their lower nature, and what's their mentality that actually keeps them on the path of pure devotion. So, but before we get there, there's one more point I want to make here. Yeah. Okay, let's just go straight here. Okay, well, now just read this part. It is essential that sincere devotees this is because Krishna is very kind. Yeah, so we shouldn't exploit that kindness of Krishna. Yeah. By his mercy, because that would be an offense to the holy name, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. Yeah. So by his mercy, he makes the activities of pure devotional service available even to those of us who may be impure. Yeah. Still, the activities of pure devotional service are available. But we shouldn't be complacent, Maharaj mentions here. We have to work to free ourselves of bad habits. Yeah, and we have to make an effort to be free of material desire. Okay, now here's a verse from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Now, this illustrates the mentality of a pure devotee. Okay, which is interesting. If you want to look at the references, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 20, text 27 and 28. So I was going to put it up, but I didn't get around to it. So I've just got a picture of someone praying to the Lord. Yeah. So this is a nice prayer. By my previous shameful life, my heart is polluted with many illusory attachments. Personally, I have no power to stop them. Only Lord Krishna within my heart can remove such inauspicious contamination. Okay, more. But wherever the Lord, but whether the Lord removes such attachments immediately or lets me go on being afflicted by them, I will never give up my devotional service to him. Nice, isn't it?
Yes, that is the determination I am talking about.
Yeah, that's the determination that's in that verse. Apisetturacharo. This is the determination. Yeah, so even I might be afflicted by them, I will never give up my faith and service to the Lord. And it goes on. Even if the Lord places millions of obstacles in my path, and even if because of my offenses I go to hell, I will never for a moment stop serving Lord Krishna. I'm not interested in mental speculation and fruitive activities. Even if Lord Brahma personally comes before me offering such engagements, I will not be even slightly interested. Although I am attached to material things, and I can see very clearly that they lead to no good, because they simply give me trouble and disturb my devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, I sincerely repent my foolish attachments to so many material things, and I am patiently awaiting Lord Krishna's mercy. Okay? Very nice verses. So this is a pure devotional mentality that's carried, even though one may becoming someone succumb to one's material conditioning. Again, not by plan, but by some, all of a sudden they may get overwhelmed by the lower modes of material nature, unplanned, and they may, could say, fall away from the principles of bhakti. Yeah. But if they're correctly situated in their determination. Okay, is there any questions about that? Have we made this clear what we're trying to explain here? Okay. Silence generally means yes, we've understood as best as we can. Okay. So a little bit about devotional renunciation. Now, we're clear up to this point that we want to cultivate freedom from desire for material enjoyment or liberation, termed by Rupa Goswami as bhakti and mukti. So they're adverse to the cultivation of pure devotion. We're cultivating pure devotion, then we don't want to be desiring like the materialists do or the yogis for liberation. Now, there's some places which may seem more conducive for practicing devotional service than others. I think you get the idea with these two pictures here. Yeah. We've got Kartik coming up soon, and quite a few devotees are running away to Vrindavan. Why? Because it's a good place to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Yeah. So, in one sense, living in Vrindavan, or it's not the Himalayas, but in a place like this, in the picture, in one sense, it's conducive for Krishna consciousness. So sometimes this is sometimes a question as well, because not everyone can live in these places for various reasons. Yeah. So how is it possible to remain aloof from the sense objects and sense enjoyment? Yeah. I mean, I always give this example. If you happen to walk down Oxford Street and you don't buy anything, or you don't desire to buy something, or you don't look at to buy something, you are a liberated soul. Right. Because it's all about flirting material things and accessories, So how to remain aloof from all of that? And the whole of the Western world, especially Western European cities, is kind of tempting you, tempting your, you get the idea. Yeah. So how to remain aloof from that while living and working? We have to work. We can't. Oh, great for you! You can live in Vrindavan. I can't do that. So how, for example, so we're living in a, Maharaj describes it as a sprawling modern metropolis. Yeah? I think London is a sprawling, aging metropolis, falling to pieces. Now, Rupa Goswami, he gives us, he answers this question to give us, by explaining Lord Chaitanya's teachings on renunciation and pure devotion. So I think some of you might know where we're going here. Yeah. So he doesn't praise those who have retired to the forest, in rejecting sense objects. Rupa Goswami goes as far as to call them pseudo-renunciates. Now, what is pseudo-renunciates? They may not be real renunciates. So he recommends, Sthanestita, Lord Chaitanya recommends, that devotees stay where they are and cultivate Krishna consciousness, even if it's in the middle of a sprawling metropolis, where there's so many temptations there. So how do we protect ourselves? Describe, we need to create an impenetrable armor. That means combining pure devotional service with a proper attitude towards the material world. So explain what that proper attitude is. So that means even because they ask conditioned souls can live amongst the sense objects and remain detached. Yeah. No. So this is a way that as devotees we give up and stay away from the desire for material enjoyment. Now Krishna gives this example. This is from Bhagavad Gita. Someone like to read this verse here?
Can I read?
Yeah, go ahead.
One. Sorry.
Who? Okay, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is unattached by water.
Yeah, this explains it very nicely. Yeah, performs his duty without attachment, so rendering devotional service, surrendering results to Krishna, unaffected by sinful reactions, like a lotus is untouched by water. Yeah. Now, these are the verses which some of you might have guessed that we're coming to. This is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yeah. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his or her renunciation. Okay? So, Rupa Goswami goes further. He calls it, another term he calls it blind renunciation. Yeah, just like speculative knowledge or austerities outside the realm of Krishna consciousness, they harden the heart. So he mentions that this is false renunciation. Yeah. You understand? It's called the technical term is Falgu Vairagya, where someone, like this is a picture of someone who's, I don't know him personally. I got the picture off the web. It's not one of our devotees in the ashram, right? But it's someone who's gone to the Himalayas or somewhere. Sometimes you see this, isn't it? And they're living very austere, eating very austerely, doing hours of meditation, and supposedly free of material desire. But Rupa Goswami calls this false renunciation. Yeah, and he gives example of Falgu Vairagya. So this is an interesting example he gives, because the Falgu is actually a name, if anyone's heard of it, it's a name of a river in India. It's a tributary of the Ganges, which happens to be where Lord Buddha attained enlightenment. Okay, Now, this river is quite interesting because if you look at it, you will not see that it's a river, because somehow or another, by the landscape, it's all full of dirt. It's all full. So you have to look very carefully, and then you'll see it moving. You get the idea? But it's just the river itself is underneath the dirt, which is on the top. Yeah. So sometimes it appears from a distance to be dry, just a bed of sand. But beneath that sand, just very close to the surface, the water still flows. So it's a misleading appearance. So he compares that it's compared to false renunciation. So in other words, just as this bed of this Falgul river appears to be dried up, false renunciates appear to be devoid of desire. He may see, well, he might be, we don't know, but let's guess he's not. Appears to be, he's not living in a house, he's not living, appears to be free of desire. But if you put your hand in this Falgul river, you'll find it teeming with fish just underneath the surface. So Maharaj describes here, by examining the hearts of false renunciates, so these are false renunciates, one will find teeming desires for sense objects they have apparently shunned. I'm remembering there's so many wonderful accounts that Radhanath Swami gives in his book, The Journey Home, different persons he meets. And there's one person he meets, and he's a sadhu. And there's people lining up to take the dust from his feet, And Radhanath Maharaj is there. He's not Radhanath Maharaj at that point, but, Radhanath Maharaj is there. And then afterwards, when the cured people have gone, he sees Radhanath Maharaj, who is dressed like a renunciate, is dressed like a yogi, as we know. And he starts to say, "You fool, you come from the West and you've given all that up. You've given all the comforts of the West just to come here and live like this." Just worse, he was saying worse than his fact, "You are foolish, you are mad." So this person who's so-called renunciate, so-called sadhu, he's just envious and full of desires for material opulence. And of course, Maharaj, I forget what exactly he writes, but he puts one of the lessons he learned on his journey, that, so-called renunciates, I mean, sometimes they become sometimes they can be, behind the scenes. I mean, we won't go into details, but all types of simple things are going on because their heart is full of desires, So
this reminds me of the
Yeah, go on.
Bhagavad Gita 4:18.
You have the verse there? You can tell.
One who sees in action and action in action is intelligent among men, and he is transcendental in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities.
Yeah, that's another wonderful verse we could bring into this discussion. Yeah. It seems that this person is not engaged in action, but actually he's, full of material desires. Yeah. So you can see this is false, it could be termed as false renunciation. Yeah. So how to put it into practice? Real renunciation into practice, living in the modern metropolis or living in the European, cities and towns where sense gratification is the number one pursuit. Yeah. So first we got to recognize that we cannot completely renounce sense objects. We cannot. We have to, as we mentioned in the beginning, we have to change our desires in relationship with them. So in other words, instead of thinking how to enjoy sense objects, we think of how to gather sense objects for Krishna's pleasure. And it's one sense, it's simple for devotees. In one sense, like you you see a bunch of flowers, and you've got Gaunitai deities at home, you know? You got deities at home. And you want to buy a really nice bunch of flowers. Why? For Krishna. Yeah. So you can look at those flowers, you can see which ones are more beautiful, which ones are going to last longer, probably, which ones have got a scent. So you're full of desire. You're kind of going through your mentality, your intelligence is full, but it's for Krishna. It is for your Gaunitai, or it's for the deities when you're on the way to the temple. Yeah. So think of how to gather sense objects for Krishna's pleasure. Yeah. So I might just read this sentence. Sense objects are related to the Lord because they are manifestations of his energy. So in that light, they are his, and they should be given back to him. Yeah. So that's our constitutional position as jivas. We're his servants, and we should engage in his service. That all money is his. Yeah, it should be given to him. Okay. Prabhupada says, that statement, you should give 50% of what you earn. That's quite very difficult for most. Yeah. But my Guru Maharaj described it like this. He said, actually, Krishna's very, very kind. Everything belongs to him, but he's letting you keep 50%. You understand that? Anyway, about going to discussion on that and the practical application of that. That's the whole discussion. But you get the point here. So we should, all types of foods are his and should be offered back to him in the act of love. Okay. So if we develop this mentality, if we're moving around the world and we see nice things and we can think, let me buy something for Krishna and let me get something for Krishna. Like the other day, some wealthy person gave us a £500 donation for the deities. So I'm all excited what I'm going to spend £500 on for Krishna. Yeah. And I'm looking at I want to buy some nice scents for Krishna. Yeah. Some nice scents for Krishna. So sometimes one small bottle can cost like £400 or something like that. But the idea, so this is devotees. It should be natural for us. We're thinking, okay, someone gave me £500. It's not, oh great, someone gave me that. What can I buy for Krishna? Yeah. So how the nose, Marge mentions here, the nose can be used. We can smell incense after it's being offered. So engage our senses. We can, once it's been offered. The eyes, we can use them in seeing the beautiful deity, how they're dressed. Like today's beautifully dressed. Today's darshan was wonderful. And what do we use the ears for? Hearing about Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. Like last night we was reading with devotees Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Such wonderful verses describing the glories of Krishna's devotees. Yeah. And tongue. Today I had a big plate of Rajbhog Mahaprasad. Yeah. I gave the lunch class, so I was entitled to a plate of Rajbhog Mahaprasad. So from a yogi, I'm just a sense enjoyer. But no, I'm practicing true renunciation. But of course, we have to be careful. It's not like I should, you can eat too much Mahaprasad, okay? That's the other side as well. Yeah. So, in other words, material opulence can be used to propagate Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So now I want to go over a couple of minutes. I hope you don't mind because I want to finish on an important point. So if we have this vision, then we no longer see the objects of the senses as separate from Krishna. That's how we can live in these places. Yeah. That if we go shopping, we're shopping for Krishna. Or we could even extend it. Remember the first part beginning? Anyabila Sita. So now it's getting cold. We might have to buy a coat. Does that mean we're not a pure devotee if we have to buy a hat, a woolly hat? No. because we're using it to maintain our body. Now this part, let me just finish here. Maharaj he describes as a final word here of, we have to be careful again in the name of Yukta Vairagya, that we're not contacting the sense objects that's beyond our ability to engage in Krishna's service. So again, we have to keep lined up with this verse and Yabadasta Sunyam. Yeah. So we should not over endeavor for things that are too difficult for us to engage in Krishna's service. So some example. So for instance, someone may be well intentioned to build a temple for Krishna, often happens in India, or build a temple for Krishna to welcome the public to come in, and they have to raise vast amounts of money. So sometimes, unfortunately, it happens in Mayapur. With all due respect, you get these people who join from the villages, and they've never seen a 500 rupee note or 1,000 rupee note, and they get put in charge of a department where they see thousands of rupees, and they can sometimes become bewildered by the opulence that's passing through their hands. Yeah, so we have to be careful as well. It's like Bhakti Siddhanta, when the temple was completed, I think we know this story, in 1935, Bhakti Bazaar, then the devotees were beginning to have fights. I don't know if it's physical fights, but they was having fights of who was going to be in certain rooms. Yeah. So Bhakti Siddhanta, as we know, famously told Prabhupada he wanted to sell it. Yeah. So we should not aspire for material benefits in the perks of Yukta Vairagya. Yeah. So Maharaj brings up here sannyasis, gurus, and other leaders, subsequent their followers may don't to enjoy material opulence in the name of service to Krishna. In the name of service to Krishna, I'm actually enjoying material opulence. So then we get victimized much by a lower nature. We cheat ourselves in the name of pure devotion. Then it goes on, material desires are rekindled, and that one is forced into further sense enjoyment that inevitably leads to degradation and usually sex-related scandals. And it creates quite a picture there. Yeah. So we have to be careful how we utilize this interpretation that Rupa Goswami gives. Now, and as an example, Rupa Goswami and the Goswamis, or Rupa Goswami, he's the one who's coined this phrase and this thing of true renunciation. Doesn't mean, it means using things in Krishna's service. But so he's very aware of it. But the Goswamis, they didn't live in, they just had little huts. They lived very, very simply. Why? Because their service didn't need material facilities. So they just had perhaps all they needed perhaps was a little bowl, and I don't know how they would write, but they would write, some type of pen and some leaves in order to write. So that's all they needed for their specific service. Yeah. Now, just read this last part here. The Goswamis approved of opulence for preaching, but because their preaching did not require it, their lifestyle displayed the inner mood of all pure devotees, one of complete detachment. But as you know, Bhaktisiddhanta, he didn't live like the Goswamis. He could have, and he was a Goswami, but for the sake of preaching, he accepted so many material facilities. So in conclusion, although devotees of our modern times, and that's us, we may need more facilities to live and to preach. We cannot live as the Goswamis did. At least we should want to emulate their mood and not try to imitate them. Okay, we're paused there. We've gone. So we covered the first part. Next week we'll look at Venus liberation, etc. What about knowledge and these as well? Okay. So thank you for kind attention. Please join us next week. Yeah. Sorry to go over for a few minutes, and hope you have a wonderful weekend. Okay. Srila Prabhupada, or any final comments? Anyone out there?
His Grace Marimanor Prabhu ki jai. Final comment.
Gayatri, Narati Jai.
Jai Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
I have a comment.
Wait, yeah. Vijay, leave us with a wonderful comment, please.
Srila Prabhupada didn't like it when the devotees would go for the fulfillment of the following tendency. And this is a sign of our modern times, that at the time of the Goswamis, there were no many books as we have now, because now we have printing and publishing.
Yes.
And Srila Prabhupada said that the books for us to read, he was not very fond of his disciples and devotees and his followers, for them to read too many books. He said that Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion would be enough.
That's
yes.
a good point, and we'll discuss that next week here. What about knowledge? What about reading, cultivating knowledge? So we're very good point you brought up, and we'll expand that. We'll expand more on that next week. See this picture?
Course,
you can't see anything because I've just stopped sharing. But next week we'll discuss that more. It's a very valuable point you made, and we'll speak about that next week. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, dear devotees.
Thank you.
Hari,
Thank you so much,
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Thank you. Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Ram Ram Hare.